Okay, so I probably haven't said it on here, but just for a background of what is spurring this topic, I volunteer with a queer youth advocacy group, and we go and we give presentations or workshops about queer issues and to educate people, especially people working in mental health fields or schools and whatever, so that people can be more educated and whatever to minimize transphobia and homophobia and just queer phobia in general. So today I was at a workshop for Mobile Crisis Center, which is basically in Ottawa. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but if you feel like you're not safe at home, like if you're getting attacked or something at home with abuse or something, or you feel like you are suicidal or something like that, and your safety or the safety of others is in jeopardy for those related type issues, then you call the distress center and they send over the Mobile Crisis Center, and they also can come, or if you feel like your mental health is getting to the point where you might need to go to the hospital for even things like anxiety or something, and you can't get yourself to the hospital, as well as if you went to the hospital for a mental health reason, such as a suicidal feelings or having a panic attack or something, anxiety, because it's not just suicidal, but that's usually what it's used for, or you're not feeling safe because of abuse. But anyways, so then they'll go and they call you and stuff like that. Anyways, so we were giving a presentation to them on how they could better serve the queer youth who they might end up helping. And it went very well, and we were very happy with how receptive they were. But what's this video going to be? It's not going to be about that, it's about trans things, and I'm just kind of giving a background. These people also, when we were giving the terminology, they'd never heard of the term transgender, well, they kind of heard of transgender, but they'd never heard the term cisgender or really anything other than really gay, lesbian, and bisexual. And whatever else. So they didn't know any of the processes of what they had to do to transition, or even that you had to do hormone therapy before doing a surgery. They knew nothing, but they were very receptive and open-minded, and it was really cool and everything else. And there's an issue that a lot of people in the queer community, I see them getting upset about, but even after just learning of it, like within the half hour, they were agreeing with us on how stupid this idea is, and this is on the subject of giving blockers to minors. So if someone thinks that they're trans, or is trans, whatever, then they can be put on hormone blockers. And why it's so important for it to go to minors is because if you get it onto them right when puberty starts or right before puberty starts, then that can prevent you going through the wrong puberty. So if you were assigned male at birth, that can stop you from growing facial hair, and it can stop you from your voice dropping and whatever. And if you were assigned female at birth, it can stop breasts from growing, stop you from having your period and things like this, which can be very dysphoric and all this other stuff. And a lot of people are like, you can't affect a child's hormones. The thing is that blockers are 100% reversible. You stop taking the blockers, everything starts going again. So if the child starts on the blockers at 11 or whatever, and then they realize at 15, no, you know what, actually I'm cisgender, I'm not trans, or I don't want to transition, if I'm not, I'm maybe non-binary or whatever, and I don't want to transition, they go off the blockers, then they go through puberty. No problem, 100% reversal, no side effects, it's the safest fucking thing, and it's a hell of a lot safer than forcing these kids to end up having more things that'll have to get reversed later through surgeries even, and not everything can even be reversed, so stopping them from getting their secondary sex characteristics, which can stop dysphoria and can stop a lot of transphobia, because if you put a little boy in girls' clothes or vice versa, nobody's going to be able to tell that that's a little boy or a little girl. I can personally attest to that until I was like 13, 14, and it was 13, because once I got my period, all of a sudden I had boobs and butt and hips. Like, it literally grew within the span of like 6 months. It was really fucking weird. But yeah, like, before that though, I was a poor kid growing up, so I wore hand-me-downs, and I didn't have an older sister. I only had an older brother, and I've always preferred short hair, so until, like, when I was 12 years old, and I had already started puberty and everything else, and I can, if I could show you, actually, I might scan it or something, but my, even my grade 7 photo card, my ID card, I look like a little boy. But whatever. And so it's a lot easier to go on the blockers then and stop you from having all these secondary sex characteristics, which may be irreversible, such as a voice drop, or might have to take surgeries to get rid of, such as growing breasts. So you can stop the dysphoria, you can stop the transphobia, because if you have someone who looks and you can't tell if they're wearing women's clothes, you're like, oh, and it doesn't have any sort of secondary sex characteristics, oh, it's a little girl. So if we can, like, putting them on blockers, completely reversible, completely safe, and it actually makes them safer, because then they might not be subjected to as much transphobia, as well as safer from themselves, because they won't have as many issues with dysphoria and suicidal issues and whatnot, because their body is they're dealing with less dysphoria. So I don't understand why, but the thing is that the fucking medical system is transphobic as fuck. So, and even just CHEO, which is the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, there we go, which is the Children's Hospital in Ottawa. I know it says Eastern Ontario, but it's Ottawa. But anyways, even CHEO they have the gender identity thing, and it's just, their website's awful, and apparently from everyone I've talked to, it's awful too, and everything else, and they don't want to put the kid on blockers because they might not be trans. And now back to the whole the people we were giving the presentation to, they had never heard of hormones or blockers or anything. They had never heard of the word cisgender even, or asexual or anything like this. But the second they're like, okay, blockers are 100% reversible, and they're totally safe, and whatever else, and it prevents any sort of dysphoria, homophobia, or suicidal ideation. And they couldn't understand the whole, but they might not be trans. If they're not, then they go off the blockers and they go through puberty and everything's hunky-dory. But if they are, which not a whole heck of a lot of people who want to go on blockers are not trans, so in the first place, if somewhere on the spectrum or whatever, then you could be preventing so much bad stuff happening. So even these people who were completely 100% uneducated on queer anything didn't understand people whose jobs it is to treat trans people. They couldn't understand the transphobia that was existing. So, and these people weren't like, little kids. You hear about that happening? They were, between like 30 and being middle-aged with gray hair or whatever. So and they like I said, 100% uneducated until this point. They'd never heard of non-binary. They'd never heard of any of this shit. But they could totally see why blockers were the best thing to give a kid who might be trans, and they didn't understand why they were being refused because they might not be trans. So that just shows you how fucked up the fucking thing is. And when they were hearing about how you had to wait like 3 years to maybe get your surgery, they were like, what the fuck, and everything else. And when they were hearing about all sorts of stories about queerphobia and transphobia, because even just because, like, while I am gender fluid, I haven't had to do any sort of medical stuff with that, and I haven't told anyone besides the internet and my queer friends and one or two of my cishet friends, and my mom by accident, but it hasn't come up again since, so I don't know. But, yeah, but even just, like, they see me as a lesbian or whatever, I've had a fucking shit ton of queerphobia with that, and it's just, they couldn't understand why people were being so fucking queerphobic, and it's like, yes, I'm glad that, first of all, people who are in the mental health field are like this. I just wish we could have more people like you in the mental health field where they are gatekeepers. And gatekeepers is a term for people who control whether or not a trans person can transition. Basically, they are holding the gate from them becoming changing their body to better identify with who they are. So, yeah. That's how fucked up the healthcare system is, and this is in Canada. So, yeah. Now, when I mentioned the whole you have to wait 3 years or whatever, that's mostly if you want to get it paid for by universal healthcare, but it's a lot easier to get a breast reduction because for a cis person than to get even a breast reduction, let alone a mastectomy, for a trans person, or any sort of hormone therapy even, or blockers to begin with, which, again, blockers, 100% safe, 100% reversible, no issues whatsoever with that. So, yeah, there's a lot of bullshit, and I was just at least hopefully they will go on to say, hey, can these awesome youth people give you some fucking workshops too and stuff, but it's not likely to happen because of stuff, but I can be hopeful. Thanks for watching.